Okay. Welcome back. Solo role manging. Shadowdark. What a pleasant little system. We're going through Barrowmaze a little bit here. Definitely not doing the whole thing, but we're going probably until I have a TPK or something like that, I would imagine, or I'm just like, yeah, that's good enough. We'll see. Dungeon crawling is certainly not one of my favorite activities in RPGs. Although I guess it's kind of growing on me a little bit from all this solo dungeon module stuff we do. But doing it solo and reading everything is a lot different than actually playing and being caught in this sort of nightmare. But anyways, we have explored up through room 11. Technically, this also explored. Yeah, so room 11, skipping over number 7, of course, because that was a secret that we're never going to find and has nothing in it. So, huzzah. We found a couple bricked up walls, but we don't have sledgehammers. We didn't know we needed them. Now we know. So we could go back to town and grab them. But every time you go back to town, and I think specifically it's a go back to town thing. If you go back up top and like camp right outside the Barrow Mound, I don't think that I would do this. Like just overnight or something. But that's why this kind of should be in an isolated location a bit more. Where it's like a trek. I guess, yeah, I didn't really read the description here of how far away the town is. Which, okay, so the village is here. This is Helix, the main town. And then Barrowmaze is here. So it's 10 miles. Okay. So it's about 4 hours. In that case, yeah, I guess... It is very much an overnight trip if you wanted. Well, I mean, it's not like a 2-day hike or anything like that. Like, you can finish up in the maze at like noon, go back to town, spend the rest of your day in town, and then in the morning hike back out and have the, you know, couple hours to whatever. And what I was looking at specifically was the restocking table. And this is performed, it says, every time the players go to town and back. So this is every night. Every trip, I guess. You have to roll on this. And it seems like a lot of work. I've never done it, because I've never ran like a mega dungeon. And this is really largely a mega dungeon mechanic, you know. Or a big dungeon that players will leave and come back multiple times. But every time they come back, if they go into a room that they've already been in, you're going to roll on this table. I mean, I guess you're meant to roll every room that they've been in, but that seems like it would get astronomically large halfway through this dungeon. I mean, you're going to sit here and roll 200 fucking rooms or something every time. Like, no, I don't think that's the case. But obviously, you're not going to roll if they're... Because there's multiple entrances to the maze from different barrow mounds. But I guess it depends on where they are, you know, where they're intending to continue exploring and stuff. So say they come in here and they've gone up this way and they stopped at 62. I mean, in that case, you really wouldn't bother restocking room number 10 here or something like that. You know, they'd go through here and you'd restock check for 17, 61, 60, 62, you know, and that, I think that would basically be it. This is all relatively new to me, as I said, but that's the impression I get. Let me check a blog here. Well, this blog says that the restocking is very good for rooms that have been cleared out and have been reoccupied, perhaps. It doesn't say anything about occupied rooms that characters haven't yet explored, which is a whole other ball of worms. And so this is for rival adventuring parties that might also be exploring the location simultaneously. So you roll on this big D100. Seems like it gets a little complicated, but I don't know. I mean, the fact that this dungeon restocks every night is pretty insane. Whereas a lot of people are saying, like, they check every week, every month, every season, maybe. I guess it kind of depends on the scale of your game. Barrowmaze is not a massive mega dungeon, but it's going to take, yeah, probably quite a number of weeks in-game to get through. Especially if things are restocking constantly. But the idea is that a mega dungeon like this should be a living environment. You know, it should be a microcosm of various factions that are, you know, actively vying for control, interacting with one another, avoiding each other, retaking territory, essentially, all that sort of stuff. You know, it's like a miniature city almost, but very tight and cramped. So there should be a lot of interaction among the denizens here. So here's an article from the Alexandrian about restocking. I find that the process of restocking a dungeon is as much art as science. You want to look at the context of how events are evolving within the dungeon, the actions that PCs have taken, the responses NPCs have to those actions, and so forth, in order to determine how the dungeon will evolve over time. With that being said, I often find it rewarding to incorporate random procedural content generation. Okay, run the original stocking procedure between sessions. Check each empty room to see if it now contains an encounter. If so, generate the encounter. The problem with this method, even if it is limited only to the room that the PCs passed through during the previous session, is that it will, statistically speaking, usually lead to the generation of more creatures than the PCs are eliminating. The dungeon will slowly turn into an overcrowded tenement. An alternative would be to use your original dungeon key as a Glendower template during restocking. Check each empty room which has a protection point budget to see if it has been inhabited. Okay, so this is based on, I guess... This is part 7 of a series of articles about a big dungeon, so I am not sure exactly what he's talking about. Then he goes into another approach, blocking out specific sectors or quadrants, which Barrowmaze already is. It's broken up into various areas, 10 areas. So, I mean, that's pretty easy. And for each quadrant that the PCs entered during the previous session, there is a 1 in 6 chance that it will be restocked. For each restocked quadrant, check each uninhabited room using the normal stocking procedures to see if it is now inhabited. Check all rooms in the quadrant for treasure, although the rooms that were currently inhabited only have a 1 in 20 chance of generating new treasure. This procedure can add new encounters even to areas that the PCs haven't previously depleted. This is intentional. Reinforcing their ranks and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so there's a lot of thoughts on restocking big dungeons. Because anybody that's interested in, like, the OSR at all it's gotta be a little interested in the idea of a mega dungeon. So it's kind of a popular topic of discussion. And plenty of people are always considering running the Halls of Ardenvul and Stonehell and stuff like that. How would I do this if I was going to just run this? DM this. I'm sitting down. I'm going to run Barrowmaze for a group of Shadowdark players. And if I was going to do that, I'd be running it more by the book. I'd use the Barrowmound setup and the town nearby and all that kind of stuff. So I'd run it pretty close to that. So how would I do it that would be fun for players and also not insane for me? Well, one thing is to think that you don't necessarily have to restock during a session. That can be out of session, between session kind of thing, which does help a lot. But I agree going room by room on that basic, like, D6, which has a 33% chance per room of generating monsters. That seems a little excessive per room, especially when you consider how many rooms there are. Essentially, players will never clear out a dungeon, a mega dungeon. And perhaps that's true. Perhaps it should not be clearable. But I think you can make it not necessarily clearable or not likely to be cleared. Well, not making it just utterly ridiculous and just more and more creatures are being added constantly. So I think I don't know, because you never know. You start going into all sorts of branching directions. You can't be certain where they're going to go when they come back to the dungeon. So you can't necessarily restock stuff that they're likely to traverse again. Yeah, it's kind of tricky. I'm not quite sure how I would do it. I guess I'd want to... I'd probably... What I would do is, if I could do it between sessions, I'd want to do restocking for, like, every empty room, but just lower the odds massively to actually have monsters re-inhabit. I guess. It's still not a great solution, because it's still fairly random, and I think you're meant to be interpreting the dungeon more as, like, a living entity. But, like, if we left now, where we are, and came back, like, 3 days later or something... And that, I mean, let's just say we keep rolling, and we roll for every room. And let's skip room 1. But, like, room 2, nothing. 3, nothing. 4, nothing. 5 would be restocked with monster and treasure, even though it didn't have anything. Oh, it had the rats there originally. So, yeah, then I would have a whole new encounter there. 6 would be restocked with monster and treasure. 8, nothing. 9 would be restocked with just a monster. 10 would be restocked with monster. You know, the crypt 1 there, nothing. The spider room would be restocked. Probably the spider returns there. That would make the most sense. And then the desecrated crypt, nothing. So you already have now essentially added more monsters in than we've cleared. And we wouldn't necessarily go into all these rooms, but unless we closed all the doors, I feel like a lot is open, and it's just like, okay, more creatures, more creatures, more creatures. And if I was gonna not roll randomly per room and just think about it logically of like, okay, what's gonna happen here? What would restock? I think the spider would return. I think the shadow would return. I think that's all pretty fair. I think rats might return to where they were, or in a slightly different location, something like that. maybe rats would be where the zombies are or something, munching on zombies. I don't know. You could introduce mongrel men, but I also don't know the dungeon that well, so I don't know what's in all these surrounding areas, which might help if I knew if there were a type of creature that inhabiting different sections here. You know, when we ran Sinister Stone of Sakara before, that was all pretty clearly broken up by faction. Like, there's the kobold area, there's the orc area, this is the bandit area. And so if enough time passes, maybe, you know, and you wipe out one faction, maybe the orcs then expand and take over that whole section. And I'm sure plenty of mega dungeon levels and areas work out similarly. I just don't know. We're running this kind of room by room. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of how I do it. I just like think about the area a little bit, which is going to get harder and harder and harder. And in general, it just, I don't know, I guess you probably generally have a decent idea of where your players are going to go to continue exploring most of the time, but they might just veer off in a different direction entirely, but then that's usually in like an unexplored direction, so it's not that big of a problem. I don't know. Anyways, let's continue. So we're not leaving. We're still here. I think my oil flask is like mostly used. Underclock's back at 20. We just checked out room 11. Can't go into 12 yet until we get a sledgehammer. So we're going to go down here past this bricked up wall. And we'll listen at 13. So let me find burn 13. The door to this room is trapped. Opening the door snaps a tripwire that sets off a rusty light crossbow mounted on the north wall. The crossbow has a 2 in 6 chance to misfire. Alcoves line the walls. The room has been hastily searched. Okay. So this door is trapped, right? We have not really been checking for traps on doors. We haven't been thinking about that too much. And probably you should, considering the first fucking door we went through was trapped and nearly, well, it didn't really get us killed or anything, but it could have. Trapping us in there with the skeletons. So, I mean, it's not ridiculous to think doors are trapped, but the fact that I have been really cavalier in just opening doors and stuff, I don't think we're going to look. So we're going to play this as if I just didn't look, and Iran just starts slowly opening the door. So yeah, this is OSR stuff, so there's no like perception check or anything like that. If you're just gonna cavalierly open a door like that and not mention anything, then you're probably gonna trigger a trap if it's there. So now we have to trigger this crossbow tripwire trip thing. Tripwire, yes. Rusty light crossbow mounted on the wall. 1d6 damage. First of all, it has a 2d6 chance, a 2 in 6 chance to misfire. So on a 1 or a 2, does not misfire. So then, what do we do? Shadowdark says this about traps. Most traps should have a hint or tell. Be careful not to make traps too frequent or the game pace will suffer. What possible tell could there be here? I guess maybe a tell that you could do is like say, okay, you're walking down the hallway. To your right, there's a bricked up wall. You know, like obviously bricks have been specifically placed in a hole in the wall here, or something like. I guess it's like an archway or a door frame. I guess has been bricked up, and then past that, on the wall next to it, you see several like small pock marks in the wall, like little indentations where stone has been knocked out. And that's what I would say. And maybe they would correlate that as being impacts from something across the other side of the wall from it where that door is, and maybe that's your little tell. I guess that's what I would say. Then it says finding. Characters who search a specific area or object for a trap automatically find it. Yeah, certainly kind of new SR casualification a little bit, but it does require the players actively tell you where they're searching specifically. So if a player says that they're gonna check this door to see if there's any traps or something, then they find it. How they find it, I'm not quite sure. You might have to hand wave a little bit there, that maybe they like push open the door slightly and they feel a tripwire on the other side, something like that, but they find it. Then disabling. Thieves and characters who are trained in tinkering can describe how they disable or circumvent a trap. If the character has enough time and uses a reasonable method, the character succeeds. If there is time pressure or the trap requires a great deal of skill to deactivate, the GM might call for a stat check. So, specifically then, this is thieves and characters who are trained in tinkering. That is not all characters. Which I interpret then is if Krogar said, oh, I lean in and I'm going to cut the tripwire with the door slowly opening. Technically, he shouldn't be allowed to do it, but as usual, like, if it's reasonable enough, I think it's something can be attempted if it's within the realm of logic. So if you're going to tell me that, I'd probably give Hrogar just a dex check against like DC 12, whereas a thief or something would just automatically succeed. I guess that's how I do it, but let's pretend that we didn't do any of that and Aran just slowly opens the door cluelessly. I think the angle here kind of matters, to be honest, unless you want to hand wave it. Because if the pockmarks are on the wall, that implies that the trap is on the opposite wall here, where the 13 is listed. And actually, the text specifically says that it's mounted on the north wall. Which means that if you say, I open the door slowly, that means that the tripwire is going to break, and the crossbow is going to fire before the door's like actually opened all the way, and the crossbow bolt will just slam into the door, right? Whereas if you put the crossbow at an angle, like where the door opens slowly, then pretty much guaranteed to hit. Because then if you say, okay, you open the door slowly and cautiously, you either have to let them see the tripwire and let them notice it, or the crossbow bolt hits the door harmlessly, or you just say, okay, as you open the door, a crossbow bolt fires, and, you know, whatever effect of it potentially hitting them. I don't know, you could take a gamble and hope that they don't put 2 and 2 together and call you out or anything, or you just remove the pockmarks on the wall and don't mention that because it doesn't make sense. Or let them see the tripwire if they open it slowly and let that count as finding the trap. I think by and large players are pretty cautious about doors. It's just I'm not when I'm doing this solo. But, you know, most players, I feel like, in a dungeon like this where traps are a possibility, they're like, okay, I'm up against the wall and I slowly like push it open with my hand or just like a crack and we try to look in. Like that's often how they're opening doors. So I don't know, it's kind of hard to say. But let's pretend Aran just opens it because we want to adjudicate what happens if the crossbow fires. Says characters typically get to make a relevant stat check to avoid a trap's effects. And sure enough, here is one of the sample traps. Crossbow, trigger is a tripwire, damage is 1d6, which is exactly what Barrowmaze says. The dodge, the avoidance here would be dexterity. So Aran's just going to make a basic dex roll, and let's do DC 12, you know? So just roll it. Alright, he rolled a 9, so that's going to be d6 damage. He rolled 1, so he's down to 6 out of 7. And so Just kind of grazes him a little bit, grazes his arm as he tries to bounce out of the way and close the door, but close but no cigar. Okay. And that's it. That was that. Moving on, though, there are burial alcoves in the walls here. And if we want, we could spend 2 turns to search it, and I think we do. First, we have to roll underclock for room number 13 that we are investigating. So D6, just 1. And then we're going to search the alcoves, so that's 2 turns of searching, which is almost certainly going to run out this flask, so we will delete that. Okay, there you go. All right, and then D6, down 6 to 13. Not too bad. And we get 108 gold pieces. Ooh. We will have Yuri carry that, 108. And I will write that down in my notes. 108 GP is 108 XP. Ho ho ho. Alright, now 14 we cannot access directly. We have to go through 20. So I guess we're gonna go through room 5 here. So he'll do the same thing. He'll slowly open the door. Empty. That's it. That's all there is to say. So empty. Empty. Blah blah blah. Empty, blah blah blah. Okay. Something like that. Not much to say about this, but this is what you'd kind of maybe say is like a cross section, like a thoroughfare. This is kind of like an intersection. So there's an argument to be made for rooms like this of rolling like twice on random encounter checks or something like that, or not twice, but you might increase the chance of like instead of just on a 1, it might be a 1 or a 2 for areas like this. That's sort of up to your discretion. For the underclock, I could see just making it a D8 when they first enter this room, just to kind of tick it down a little further. And they got an 8, which explodes to 13, which is exactly to 0, which means it's going to go back up to 3, and that means that we get a shadowing event or whatever. So we're going to get a clue about an imminent encounter. But now it's like, oh shit, we entered this room and we can kind of hear stuff, where we feel our heartbeat kind of increase. So we're going to roll a D12. 9. Sapphire skeletons. Ooh. Sounds awful. So, we hear kind of the clickety-clackety of bones echoing around us a little bit. Something is moving nearby. And, we have to kind of decide, where do we bunker down? Because we can't really bunker down. We can only bunker down really in 5. Because to be honest, if they go anywhere else, like the encounter's probably gonna trigger. Like if we try to go back to the portcullis room or something like that, it's probably gonna happen before then. Which, you know, technically you'd clock it for going through 3 explored rooms. So you'd count that as like 5, 11, and then 9, and then they'd roll again. So it would occur like as they're trying to close the portcullis or something like that, which is a little exciting and probably better than not going there. Debating. It's kind of gaming the system maybe a little too much. Alternatively, we just seal ourselves in room number 5 here. Because the crawling kit does come with iron spikes. So we'll rush back into room number 5 here, and we'll spike the doors. Both doors. Neither one should be broken or anything like that. And then, well, the time it takes to do that is another 5, so now the encounter occurs. So, sapphire skeletons, we get 6 of them, of course. Well, fuck it, we'll do 3 on each side. Why not? Why not make it exciting? I just have to figure out what the hell a sapphire skeleton is. Well, hold on. There might be another description. Nope. Crashed. Great. Why do I use fucking Foxit? Doesn't everybody swear by Sumatra? The problem is I've used Sumatra, and that also crashes when you have like 8 PDFs open. Neither one is perfectly stable. I mean, if you're just looking at one at a time, you have one open at a time, it's fine, but for whatever reason, I don't tend to do that. Like having all of my shit open. Okay. Alright, that is the first mention of Sapphire Skeleton. Oh, but here's the Bestiary. Okay, 2 hit dice, 1 attack, AC 6, which is a 13, so that's pretty good. Blah, blah, blah. They save as a level 2 fighter. Each has a large, valuable sapphire embedded into its forehead. This jewel glows brightly when in combat. If a sapphire skeleton is reduced to 0 hit points, it draws itself back together in 2 rounds and is restored to full hit points. They're immune to fire. Only the destruction of the jewel embedded in its forehead will destroy the skeleton. Has an AC of 2, which is 17. And at 5 hit points. Upon destroying the sapphires, jewel will break into valuable shards and chunks worth 100 gold pieces per skeleton. God dang! So it says they're turned as a 3 hit die undead monster on the undead turning chart. Also, there is a section here that talks about turning undead into the Barrowmaze. It says, due to the presence of the Tablet of Chaos and Nurgle's lingering power, turning undead is a more difficult task in Barrowmaze. All turn attempts are increased by 1 number based on the Labyrinth Lore Turning Undead table. Moreover, clerics will find the process of calling on their deities more draining. To reflect this, each turn attempt further increases the difficulty by 1 per day. In this context, turning undead must be carefully considered by players. So, how do we handle this with Shadowdark, which does not use this normal system? Well, we could make it function in a clunky way that isn't really used by the rest of Shadowdark, and that is literally just applying like a +2 to the difficulty or whatever. But that's, I think, a lot better than going for like disadvantage or something like that, considering how terrible disadvantage could be. So I think probably, yeah, I would say Turn Undead just has a -2 for your first one of the day. And then a -4 for the second of the day. Third, -6. Fourth, -8. Which pretty much corresponds to what's represented here. For the most part. Because this is the Barrowmaze table, so we don't have the original numbers, but yeah, I think you can see it. It's mostly based on going up by 2 and 2 and 2 and 2. So I think that's the easiest way. I mean, it does require breaking with the simplicity of the system a little bit, but I think that's the best way to do it. So, we already turned undead once today. And we didn't do the -2, which actually would have made a difference. But we're doing that now. So, the next turn undead will be at a -4. And turn undead here is not based on any hit dice of the enemy. But the enemy gets... Yeah, honestly, I think that's probably enough, really. The -2, -4, -6. I think that's enough in keeping in line with the idea that it's a lot harder to turn undead here. Because if I start messing with the creature's stats, it's just going to get too confusing and blah, blah, blah. So I think it's good enough. So, we don't have charisma stats for the Sapphire Skeleton, but the normal skeleton is a -1. So we'll just make it a 0 for their charisma rolls if we try to turn the Sapphire ones. Alright, so we're bunkered in there, and we spiked the doors. And then the encounter occurs. 6 Sapphire Skeletons, 3 on both sides of us. And they're going to try to get in. They heard us spiking the doors. They know we're here. They're not pleased with us. So, stat-wise, yeah, they have a 13. They have 2 hit dice. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. Most of that. Okay, basically, at this point, we can just use the skeleton stats from Shadowdark, and that should be all correct. It's just these have the special sapphire in their forehead. And if that's not broken, then they're going to draw themselves back together in 2 rounds. Go back to full health. Which is pretty rough. These things are not easy. But wait till we get to steel skeletons or something. Or skeleton warrior, 8 to 12 hit dice. No joke. Alright. So they're going to start breaking through the doors. They have swords, and they're going to just start chopping away at the doors, which is pretty noisy, but I don't know if you count that for the underclock or not. Maybe you would. I'm not sure. I guess I don't think the party would just sit here and like, okay, we let them chop at the doors. Like, they're going to be reacting to this anyways. It's already a bad situation, so I don't think compounding it with the underclock is really necessary. So, pretty much you just kind of want to set, like, a timer here of how long it'll take for them to actually bash down a door or cut through a door enough for them to climb through. You could make this variable, like a D4 or something, but honestly, I would just say 3 rounds. Okay. So let's roll initiative because nothing else is going to change here. We don't have to roll a reaction roll for this. We know their reaction. We got an 8, and they get a 1. Okay. Not that it really matters, but, you know. So we sit here, and this is technically they started bashing on the doors, and then combat initiated. So now we're sitting here, and they're bashing away. Boy. I guess... I think I still have prismatic armor on. I don't think it's been 8 rounds. But that's nothing. And there's not much else I can do. We want to wait to turn undead, because it's going to keep getting harder. So now we want to maximize our potential, so that they can see the holy symbol, all 6 of them. I think we're kind of waiting. But honestly, it would probably be better, knowing that there's skeletons on both sides of us. It's probably better to actually open up one of the doors and just confront them. So I think Aran is going to yank out the iron spikes on the north door and open it. And that'll be his turn. And so we see the 3 sapphire skeletons. So Aran's in the doorway as usual. That's his favorite place to be. Trepa is going to use magic missile on one of them. That is a success. Good. D4 damage. 2 damage to one of the skeletons. Not particularly amazing, but okay. And Yuri is going to fire off a crossbow bolt at the same one. Hit for 4 damage. Now is when you actually have to start tracking hit points. Because now one of them's down to 5 out of 11. Okay. Yeah, alright, that's fine. And then that's it, because Rogar can't really do anything. Then they go and they keep... Well, the others keep bashing. So that ticks down to 2 rounds to go. And then the skeleton here is going to swing at Aran. So this is +1. He rolled a 15, which is going to be a hit for D6 damage. And that was 5. That's pretty bad. He's at 1. So if they get to go again, good odds of Aran going down. New round. Dex advantage. That's been pretty nice when it works. So 20 versus 9. We get to go. Yuri is going to cast Cure Wounds on Aran. Success. No problem. So that's 2 damage healed. It's not very good. Trepa's going to use Magic Missile against that same one. Crit. So you get to double any one numerical value. So this is going to be 2d4 for 4 damage. Still didn't kill him. Shame, shame, know your name. That would have been really nice. Alright, Aran will swing. Maybe kill one. 1 damage. Yeah, that did it. Okay, so that one dies. Okay, and then Aran will back up. Rogar is going to come in swinging. He's going to go out into the hallway and bash this dude in, even though he has no hope of killing him. He wants blood. He does 4 damage to this one. Dropping him down to 7. Really? You're not going to let me just change it there? Unless I press enter. Okay. Then they go. So both are attacking Rogar, because he's a juicy target. So this is +1 against his 14. 1 hit for D6. 3 damage. He's at 4. And the other group continues bashing. So one more round, they're going to break through. New round. Advantage. Advantage. 20 again. Dude, we got this in the bag. Yuri's going to heal Aran again. Success. Perfect. For 5, he's back to full. This is why Cure Wounds is very, very good. We have to keep now track of the skeleton getting back up. So he went down last round, so he's got 1 round after this, and then he'll get back up at the end of that round. Trepa is going to magic missile the damaged one, I guess. The angle there is a little weird. Success for D4. 1 damage. Okay, he's at 6, I guess. Rogar is going to swing at him. 6 damage. Dead. Okay. And then Aran would go over and attack the other one to cover Rogar's ass. Hit for 5 damage. Alright, it's working out. It's working out, but it's all going to come crumbling down very soon. Everything's going to hinge on that turn undead. Alright, this guy will swing at Aran. Miss. Critical miss. Doesn't really matter. New round. Right, advantage. 17 versus 12. We go again. Aran will swing again. Miss, unfortunately. He'll back out of the way then, so Rogar can get a swing in. Critical failure. Oh, God. I don't think it really makes much of a difference in this case. You know, sometimes it might involve an ally, but in our case, usually we don't want to do just like, yeah, your sword breaks or something. I mean, that's, no one likes that. No one enjoys that stuff. So it and it doesn't really specify anything for happening on a fumble in combat. It just talks about crits. So, there's critical failures for spell casting, because that's meant to be a little bit more dangerous. But for just melee combat, I don't think there's a whole lot here. Not that I know where that would ever be anyways. Seems like it. So, yeah. Okay. So, whatever. He misses. Trepa casts Magic Missile on him. Because it always has advantage. Success, D4, 3 damage. And Yuri will shoot the crossbow at it, assuming I have an angle. Miss. Okay. Then this guy is going to slash at Rogar. That's who's there. 18, dealing 1 damage. Lucky. And then the rest of the skeletons burst through the other side of room 5. So they are able to enter. At the same time, the other 2 skeletons that were down stand back up. And they reform their bodies. And this is where I would probably specifically point out the jewel, like, shimmers or something as they reform. Like, oh shit, we gotta get jewels. We gotta rip out the sapphires or something. This doesn't, I mean, you don't necessarily have to destroy it, right? I mean, it does say only the destruction of the jewel embedded in its forehead will destroy the skeleton, but, I mean, what if you just rip it out? What happens? I mean, I don't know. I'd probably say it just breaks unless you really have time to kind of pry it out carefully. And when are you ever going to have that? Unless you, like, capture these skeletons or something like that. That's probably not happening. So, anyways. New round. Dex, advantage, 4, 7. They go first. Now it gets very bad. Now it gets very, very bad. So we're going to have 2 of them attack Rogar, 1 attack Aran, and then probably 2 attack Yuri, 1 attack Trepa from the other side. We were kind of surprised. We were a bit dumbfounded when we saw these skeletons rise back up. That threw us off guard. So against Rogar, we have a 6 and an 11, both misses. Against Aran, we have an 8, miss. Against Trepa, we have a 13, which with prismatic armor is a miss, thankfully. Because I said that was still active, so we're all good. Thank God. And then against Yuri, 2 rolls, a 16 and an 11. One of those is going to hit for 2 damage. All in all, that could have gone far worse. I was expecting Rogar to definitely go down, Trepa to go down, maybe Yuri to go down. It was going to be bad. But now we're okay, and Yuri is going to unleash Turn Undead. So this is going to potentially affect all of them. Her roll is going to be made at -4. So we'll just remove this ability bonus from it. Failure. Yep. She got a 5 on that roll. They're all going to make the charisma check. Oh, wait, no, wait a minute. She's got luck. She's spending luck. Boom. There we go. That's what luck is for, baby. Alright, so a 16. And I think we said they were all just going to roll straight up d20s. A 0 modifier. So there's 6 of them, 6 d20s. Wow, they rolled horrifically. So they all flee. They all scatter to the winds, and they definitely have mobility here to run. There's no ops or anything, so they fucking flee. But that is on their turn. And it's not their turn, so we might get a few kills here. Because we do want those sapphires, right? We don't know that, I guess, but... yeah, we're going to want the sapphires. So, Hrogar is going to try and swing at one of the sapphires. We said it was an AC of 17. He hit for 3 damage, but we said that they have 5 hit points. So he kind of cracks it, unfortunately. Sad. He kind of glances off of it and cracks it. Aran will make a swing at one of them. Miss. And then Trepa will use Magic Missile on one of them. Which does guarantee a hit, but unless she crits, it won't actually break it. Oh, no, she go for the cracked one. Yeah, go for the cracked one. Success. 1d4. We just need 2. We got it. So that one shatters. Blue shards of crystal, drop to the floor along with the skeleton itself. Okay. We might still have time here. If we roll, I mean, I don't think necessarily... it says only the destruction will destroy them. So I think once you destroy the jewel, they're done. Which it's hard to hit normally, so it's not like that's an easy thing to do. But yeah, okay, new initiative, new round. We got a 13, and they got a 2, so we do get another chance to break more of them. So Hrogar will swing at another one next to him. He does break a second one. Very good. Ran will swing at another one next to him. He breaks one as well. They rolled identically. Excellent. Trepa will use Magic Missile on one. Advantage. Okay, 4 damage to one. If Yuri can just land a shot on that same one, come on. It's very unlikely. Oh, alright. Alright, then they flee. Encounter over. So we get XP for 6 of them. And they're hit dice 2. So, they're each worth 20, I think. So 6 sapphire skeletons is another 120. And then we collect the shards. So 2 broken sapphires. 2 or 3? No, I think we got 3. Oh. 3 broken sapphires. 300 gold pieces. That's pretty big, man. That's our biggest haul to date. I mean, that's 300 XP. That's great. 75 for each person. Plus an extra 30 per person. So, not too shabby. We'll have Yuri take all the treasure. Broken sapphires. Treasure value 100 gold pieces. And I should have just... Why didn't I make it just 3? Oh, there you go. 3. Perfect. Alright. Not too shabby for a random encounter. That's what it's all about. I mean, it was kind of dangerous. We could have very easily been killed, slaughtered, if I didn't have a luck token on Yuri. Also, we crit again at some point. And I think we crit after I used... I mean, it doesn't really matter. You can hand off luck tokens however you want. But yeah, I crit here with Magic Missile, so that's another luck token. I'm definitely giving it to Yuri again. It's too valuable. Okay, excellent. Problem solved. So she's going to use Cure Wounds on Hrogar now. Success. 2. Do I cast it again on him? Or is that it's too much of a risk? See, at full health, he can't die from a D6 attack, whereas now he could. It's a tricky difference. But he does have pretty good AC, so maybe it's not super important. I don't think we've gotten anything. I mean, skeletons. Are we assuming they have shields? Maybe they do have shields, but I don't know if there's any rules here for like shitty equipment, like, you know, axe, or even like Shadow the Weird Wizard has rules for inferior equipment. So, let's see what other game. What other games? I don't know. Let me just hold on. Let me check. Okay. Yes. Thankfully, shields in this game provide +2 AC. So I would say that if we want to pick up like a crude shield, it would be +1 to AC. And I think Hrogar will probably... Oh no, Hrogar does have a shield. Who didn't have a shield? Technically, Yuri doesn't have a shield. Yeah, I'm thinking of maybe a former character that I wanted to grab a shield with. I'm almost certain of that. But crossbow is two-handed, so... But I feel like in this game, swapping out your shield for your crossbow is probably just a free action. So it's like, why wouldn't I just carry a shield most of the time? So yeah, let's go ahead and do that though. We can easily afford a proper shield, god damn it, but I just want to make another item and use it. So this is going to be armor, and it's going to be crude shield. Base armor, shield? AC +1? AC 0, modifier +1? I don't know. Cost for a crude shield, considering a normal shield costs 10 gold. This is like some shitty piece of shit thing. I guess 5 silver. I guess that's about it. It's a crude shield. And then I would need to find an image for a crude shield. It looks like garbage. This one. Probably. No, this one looks really shitty. No, this one looks especially shitty. We found it. Okay, and then we give that to Yuri. We equip it. Now she's got a 13 AC. That's 11. +1 to 12, +1 to 13. That worked out. Okay. So, yeah, technically AC would be at 12 if we have the crossbow equipped. Hopefully you remember to do all that. But otherwise, we're okay. Alright. Very slow process, as we've seen, to move through this dungeon. But we're here, and we're ready to continue now. So, we're going to unspike this, grab our spikes and everything, and this door is broken and busted now, so you'd want to mark that on our map. And you can just... Pretty sure you can just free draw of just, like... That's terrible. That's the worst way to do it possible. But okay, moving on. So now we're going to listen at door number 14 as we move forward. It's all because I decided to use a D8 for that intersection. I still stand by it, though. It crashed again? Okay, I gotta fucking switch to Sumatra. Give me a second. Alright. And we got Sumatra, and we got the book view here, so I don't have to flip as much, and hopefully no crashes. Probably because I just have this open now and nothing else. It's probably the biggest factor. But anyways, so room 14, we listen and we don't hear anything. Not damn thing. So we'll slowly open the door, blah, blah, blah. And yep, we see that it's empty. And we see there are booted footprints on the floor. Very ominous. But we know that there are other Tomb Raiders here. We've encountered them. They're still waiting for us up top. We haven't left yet. So, that, you know, we would just assume that there's other Tomb Raiders coming in and out. I don't think it's especially unnerving. No 15, because that's walled, bricked up. And then 16 is another secret. So we could go back to 17, but let's go ahead and just go right into this room, because we can see into it from this hallway. Probably from where we are. Okay, well that clearly doesn't work because I don't have this set up for rooms. So great, now we reset everything. I don't know, I was just trying to come up with a... I guess the brush is pretty easy too, if you make the brush a bit smaller. And then you just paint. That sort of works as well. But that's probably a little bit messier, I don't know if I do that. Too easy to make a mistake, whereas when I do the rectangle, it's pretty clear. But yes, now we have fucked everything up. Not that it matters, but it kind of is helpful, so I know where I've been. Yeah, we can just pretty much illuminate this whole space. This whole space. Space. Space, 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 and that is correct. Okay, So 18 that we're now looking into. Empty. Old damn room is empty. Nothing much to say about that. All right, then we'll double back and go to 17, and we'll listen at the door. Upon entering this room, the party will hear a noise off in the distance. Tap, tom, tom, tap. It repeats once more and silences. A dwarf or gnome can discern the sound as a hammer. PCs cannot determine the location of the sound. A dwarf or gnome can discern it as a hammer. Now, if I just played like a very quiet hammering sound effect, but it's probably on like metal or something, right? This isn't going to be on wood. I mean, I don't know what it's from. Who the fuck knows what it's from? It doesn't even tell you the direction. It doesn't tell you where it's coming from. I mean, maybe it's from like 60 or 62, and you could look ahead at 60 or 62 and see if there's something hammering going on. But, no. I mean, I could Control F for hammer. No. Nothing in the immediate vicinity has anything to do with a hammer. So this is literally just nothing. It's not corresponding to any actual room. So I guess it could be whatever I wanted. So I'd probably want it to be like metal. Here's a fucking 8-hour video of just hammer on metal that you could just people watch this. Now, if I just played that for you, I know the music's playing, but here. Well, let's say I made it pretty quiet. It's probably not actually quiet for you. I mean, it's like, that's a fucking hammer. So unless this is like a really like small hammer or something, I don't know. Would it really require a dwarf or gnome to understand that it's a hammer? I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. But I don't think we hear that until we go into the room. So we're going to go into the room. And there's just a door to the north. Okay. Oh, I'm forgetting about underclock. We did 14, 18, 17, so that's 3 rolls. So that is 5. 5, 5. Oh god, we're down to 5 when we go into 17 now. We could barricade here, we could barricade 13, or we could try and leave, because, well, we're out of oil flasks, we're out of light spell, so at this point, for light, I'd have to give up a shield hand, or I'd have to make Trape, I guess, carry a torch, which we could do, so I guess, yeah, we don't really have to leave, and we don't probably want to leave just yet. We still have most of our spells. I think Prismatic Armor is definitely worn off now. Yeah, I'm not quite sure on the flask, because I don't remember when I triggered that. Again, I see the benefit when playing in a group with and everything with doing just a 1-hour timer. There's practically no forgetting it. Like, yeah, you can do things that'll tick the timer forward. But even if you forget, like, the time is just going. And it just keeps ticking on until it ticks out. And it can tick out potentially suddenly when you're not, like, thinking about it. And suddenly, whoop, you know, the torch goes out. Assuming you have a timer set up. And I can see the benefit of that for just simplicity of the play while emphasizing, you know, the danger of the darkness and everything. And the stress a little bit. Solo, though, you know, it says that we're supposed to keep track of rounds, and I'm struggling a little bit to keep that in mind. I'm basically thinking of just whenever I do an underclock count, that's a round. But I guess then, in that case, it said 10 rounds. Which is weird. If I go to Shadowdark again, light sources last 10 rounds each instead of 1 hour of real time. So yeah, I should count 10 underclocks rolls, not exploding 10 individual rolls. In which case, I guess it hasn't been that long, so we're probably okay for now. So if we're gonna bunker down, because again, why would you ever not bunker down if you have the opportunity to? It just seems smart. It's just fucking smart. And that's why the exploding thing is such a crucial aspect of the clock, because sometimes it can catch you unaware, which keeps that sort of random encounter element to it. But if you can bunker down, you may as well. It's just you gotta keep in mind that your lights are ticking down. Honestly, though, I think lights for any reasonable sized party is not that big of a deal. If you're all sticking together, you're using one light, and it lasts for fucking ever. You know, it's like, unless you rule that a group of 4 needs 2 lights to see properly. I don't know, I suppose it depends on how harsh you are with your lighting requirements. I don't think they really go into that a whole lot. Yeah, they don't really mention it much at all. It just, all characters need light to see. I mean, maybe it mentions it somewhere, but I say that for like everything, and then you never find it. It's definitely got plenty of good advice in here. It's not, I mean, it's not amazing. No one is really heralding Shadowdark as like the best written DM book for advice or anything, but it's serviceable enough in capturing the OSR feel and like rulings over rules and stuff. Yeah, it says, don't let light sources be set it and forget it. The characters must protect their light sources and keep them from going out. And that's what I'm really struggling with playing solo. And I haven't DM'd enough Shadowdark in dungeons to really get into that mentality of like, okay, I need to put the pressure on them constantly with their light sources. Because it's one of those things that just feels kind of mean, I guess. It feels so... Yeah, it kind of goes against a lot of my DM like ethos now of just like, the DM is meant to be a referee. The DM is meant to be a very neutral party that does not sway things one way or the other and is just reacting to the player's actions, you know. And the DM comes up with the encounters, whether they're set pieces or random, and the DM acts in response to the player's actions. So attacking their light sources specifically feels like I feel like fucking with you, and I'm going to do that as the DM, which seems way off course of like the OSR mentality. So I think that's the biggest thing that is just like, I don't know. I don't know if I agree with it. I understand why that's part of the mentality here in Shadowdark. But it's like, why? You know, this is like introducing this whole antagonistic aspect to the OSR, you know, genre that doesn't really need to be there. Like lights have always been important. Like there's never been a dungeon, a dark dungeon where it's like, yeah, we're not gonna really worry about lights and stuff. I'm sure some DMs don't even think of it or care about it or whatever, but I think most in the OSR are like, okay, you gotta have your torches and, you know, lanterns, like, you gotta be lit. You gotta be lit up. Obviously. Can't see shit. But to make it this whole, like, focal point of the system feels unnecessary a little bit and antagonistic. So I don't know, it's one of my biggest kind of sticklers about the whole system. And so I'm probably never really going to embrace it because of that. Like, have enemies try to extinguish light sources and have the environment put the light source at risk with gusts of wind and thin air and falling debris. Falling debris. And it's like, yeah, that feels great when you're just walking around and debris falls on your torch and it knocks it out and you're in darkness now. Sorry. I mean, that's like not that far off from rocks fall, everybody dies kind of thing. It's just like, dude, why are you being a dick? And I know that's not the intention of the system and the design and everything. The intention is to enhance the suspense and the stress and make it kind of survival horror. But it doesn't need that to feel like survival horror. It's already survival horror. We have 4 HP and we're in a fucking dark dungeon with undead. Like, it's... Look, this isn't superhero shit, no matter which way you look at it. So I don't think it really needs the whole attack the light aspect. Obviously, not everyone feels that way. Plenty of people really love that whole concept of focusing on the light as a pivotal aspect of gameplay. I don't know. Maybe I just have to DM more for people. And maybe it'll become more organic and feel more natural as I do it. But it's certainly not something I'm bothering with playing solo here, because it's just, it feels especially arbitrary then. One thing that I definitely don't do almost at all playing solo is rolling on the Oracle stuff, and I think, like, when I play solo here with modules and stuff, I'm mostly approaching it from like, okay, if I was DMing it, this is kind of how I would DM it, and then on the flip side, it's like, okay, and if I was then playing, this is how I would react to that. So it's like I don't really even think of like an oracle determining things randomly, because I'm thinking of it much more of just like from a DM perspective of this is how I would do it. I don't need something to randomly decide how I would run this. This is how I would run it. But yeah, I mean, yeah, if you're using an oracle a lot to determine random things that happen to you because you like the spontaneity, then yeah, I guess probably a lot of things could happen to your lighting. What the hell am I talking about? What were we doing? Oh yeah, anyways. I don't even remember what we were looking up in this book. Right, so we're gonna play, there's gonna be an encounter soon. And we were gonna bunker down again. So I guess 13 is the safest bet, unless that had a broken door or something that I don't remember. 13 had the trapped door. So no, that's perfectly fine. So we're gonna bunker down in 13 and we'll fucking spike the door and shit. And wait. And then this is again where I would fudge the number just to make sure that the underclock goes down, because this would go down to 3. I guess that case you'd get your warning or clue or whatever. So let's roll our d12 for what the encounter is going to be. 5. Mongrel men again. Okay, this is really not much of an encounter at all then. But it maybe, again, much like before where they were peeking in and stuff, we kind of want to throw another clue that maybe there's some other creatures in here that are not necessarily undead. Maybe are rational thinkers, but are not tomb raiders either. So we need to come up with some way to telegraph that to the party inside this room with a spiked door. Assuming they're being quiet, which I would imagine they are. Maybe the mongrel men don't exactly know they're in there? I'm not sure. Like I said, you always want it to be an encounter. You always want it to be something that happens, but I guess, yeah, again, like they don't ever necessarily have to meet. Because if you roll like a wilderness encounter or something like that, it is very possible for you to notice something in the distance and there just isn't an encounter. You evade it. Like Axe has the whole evasion system in it. So, yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be an encounter. It just has to be a presence that you weren't accounting for. And so I guess that's what this is going to be. We're basically going to be quiet. Maybe we dim the lantern or we kind of cover it up or something to plunge the room into darkness. Yeah, we cover up the lantern. And then in the quiet, we hear, like, kind of shuffling footsteps. How many are there? D6? 4 of them? Okay, so yeah, we definitely hear multiple, somewhat shuffling footsteps, but it's very quiet. They're definitely making an effort to cover their noise a little bit. And then, like, right outside the doorway, you'd hear very hushed voices, like barely a whisper. And they'd all, you know, everyone's straining their ears to listen, but while trying to be very quiet themselves. And it's clearly in an unknown language. It sounds very guttural, very archaic. Like maybe they can recognize almost fragments of words as if it's some ancient precursor to Common or something like that that has been that has devolved over the years. And there's various like grunts and stuff included. So they can't really understand much. I'd maybe give them a couple words. What words exactly would they pick out that might still be maybe necromancer or something like that? Because that's like a word that's still used, and maybe they didn't have the word for necromancer in their language, so they use the word necromancer. So maybe that's like the one word that sort of shines amongst their guttural speech of the group can understand. Like necromancer, you know, something like that, or necromancers maybe. And then assuming the group continues to be silent, I don't think I'd make any rolls here, and then the footsteps shuffle on, and that's the encounter. That's it. And I think that's pretty good, to be honest. Again, like, you're slowly building the ecosystem here and slowly building on the lore of everything going on, because the players coming down here aren't going to really know jack shit. You know, we found that runic tablet that detailed some history of Nurgle, god of the underworld. So we know that there's some dark stuff going on here, but that's also evident by all the fucking undead everywhere. But now it seems that there's some other creatures down here, not undead, capable of rational thought, and they're talking about necromancers. This is a big kind of, I think, hook to keep players interested. I mean, I'd be interested. Because obviously, necromancers in a huge Barrowmaze of undead, probably not good stuff. But they also have other creatures working for them, or associated with them, or aware of them, you know, something like that. So that's the encounter. Very different than, I think, if the Underclock suddenly picked up or suddenly had a mongrel men encounter and we came face to face with them or something, turning around a corner. That would be quite a bit different. But I think this is often how Underclock encounters are going to go, to be honest. Is they're often going to be occurring behind like a spiked door like this. And so I think a lot of hostile creatures are going to just like try and break the door down, and you're going to keep losing doors and be maybe trapped in a confined room. But then it also allows for some of these other sort of interesting things. It's not to say the underclock system is perfect. It's not a perfect solution to random encounters. But I think there was that mention of every time you rest in a dungeon, the underclock die increases. So you could do over time, like every couple random encounters that occur, then you bump it up to D8 as they spend more and more time in here and become like a known presence. If the players aren't ever going to rest in a dungeon, you could kind of replace it like that. Just to keep bumping it up and making it more and more and more likely that they're going to actually get caught with a random encounter. Yeah, I mean, I still really like the underclock system, but I do admit that the sitting behind a spiked door all the time is kind of an issue that doesn't really happen at all with completely random encounters. So, I don't know. I mean, you could just, if you have players that are just constantly doing that, and you're starting to run out of ideas or something like that, you could just switch for a while to just standard 1 in 1d6 every turn. Yeah. I mean, I don't think the underclock is like massively popular or anything like that. I don't hear it talked about a whole lot as an alternative to just the standard system. Actually, hold on. Let me look real quick at what Tales of Argosa does, if they have rules for random encounters. Let's see here. GM tools, random encounters. By geographic location, random encounters are unbalanced by design, blah, blah, blah. 1d20 during the day. Blah, blah, blah. Counter tables. City, town, village, desert, jungle, forest, mountain, hills, playing. Okay, this is all overland. None of this is dungeon encounters. Other than underground. Really? You don't include... Yeah, underground, I think, implies more to me like you're traveling underground. You're not in a dungeon environment, you're in like a massive underground environment. So obviously this is far too specific to actually use for a dungeon. So they don't have dungeon random encounter rules. I mean, it's not like you need them. I mean, there's a billion rules and tables across the last 50 years for random encounters and stuff, but it seems kind of surprising. Yeah, I mean, well, maybe it's under dungeon crawling. Here, hold on. Dungeon events. There we go. We found it. Okay. Uses dungeon events which are triggered by an escalating dungeon tally, which starts at 0. As they explore, moving through corridors, searching rooms, disarming traps, and so on, the GM adds 1 to the dungeon tally and updates players with a total. A giant D6 in the middle of the table works well. It's a visual tracker. This sounds very similar to Underclock, just kind of reversed. Those familiar with old school games might employ the classic 10-minute dungeon turn. When it reaches 6, roll 2d6 on the dungeon event table. GM might also roll when the PCs draw attention to themselves, they're being overly indecisive, or there's a natural lull in the adventure. And then reset the timer to 0. Yeah, that is very much underclock. I'm surprised he didn't even, like, credit Goblin Punch for the creation there. Alright, so the dungeon event, it's a 2d6 roll. So that means, on average, a random encounter will occur. Which, okay, great. But there can be other stuff in there. Party resources somehow used up, damaged, lost, left behind, or otherwise expended. So that could be where you attack the light, you know, something like that could easily happen. Or some other important resource. Or it could be ammunition or something. I mean, you know, it's going to be somewhat arbitrary. It's you roll for which PC and pick a random piece of pack gear. Warning, so this is going to be, you know, your typical warning, but you might want to base that more around what's nearby in the dungeon rather than like the next random encounter, because it could be a while, I guess, before you actually get a random encounter. Terrain change, that seems, again, a little arbitrary depending on where they are. That you might have to really make up some shit, but I guess the temperature just drops. I don't know how impactful that is to any... I don't know what players would really make of that. Lore, they learn a new piece of lore through a ceiling fresco, wall tapestry, bas relief, old scroll artifact, and so on. Okay. Ooh, boy, that could be really rough sometime. What if you just keep getting lore and it's like, oh god. Two to 3, pretty unlikely. You find a helpful clue or piece of gear. And then 11 to 12, find a potential ally. Okay. Well, I like the idea. Obviously, I mean, it's similar to the underclock, but I think this does prevent players from bunkering down, because it is much less likely that they are going to get a random encounter that's like dangerous to them. And all the other effects, you know, aren't really based at all or harmed or benefited at all by bunkering down. It happens around at the same rate because the underclock is on average 5.9 rolls. So around 6 turns, and this is around, you know, I guess technically it starts at 1. Actually, it says it goes back to 0, but it says use a d6 to track it. So I guess it starts at 0 regardless. So 6 turns either way. But then after 6 turns, you have just a... Hold on, let me see the odds here. Okay, so you have a... like a 34% chance of getting a random encounter after 6 turns, compared to the underclock, which is 100%. When the underclock is done, it's 100%, you know. So based on those odds, you could actually go many turns where nothing, you just don't have random encounters. Yeah, I don't think this is really a good solution to the underclock issue that I have, because I much prefer the underclock in general. The only problem is the bunkering down, and the only real solution I think to that, if you want an alternative, is just to go back to random rolls for a while, of just every turn, you know, roll a d6, nothing, encounter, you know, and it's just, they never know. If you want to really spice it up for a little while. Or you could just do both. just publicly tick down the underclock and then also secretly roll your d6 to see if there's a sudden random encounter. Fuck with them, you know. I mean, you can have an encounter whenever the fuck you want. You're the DM. You don't have to follow the rules. It's your random encounter. Hit them with whatever you want. They keep bunkering down. As soon as they come out of the room from bunkering down, just say, fuck you, here's an encounter. I don't know. I know, that goes against everything I just said about the DM being very neutral and trying to just be a referee. But, you know. I guess. If you want to be the very good neutral DM, then just follow the underclock and let them bunker down, and that's it. And plenty of things are going to try to break through the doors to get to them, and they'll be trapped in a room. So that's up to them. All right. I think that's actually all I have time for now. I'm sorry. I know this is a short video, but that's the way it goes. So, yeah, I mean, obviously still haven't gotten too far. We're up to room 20 now. So next time, I guess we'll be going through these crypts a little bit more. That'll be a little spicy. And then if we want to get... Pretty soon, we're going to have to get a sledgehammer. I don't know where we're going to get one, but... Oh yeah, we're going to go through room 19 as well. Which seems like... I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? It can be anything. But yeah, slowly but surely crawling through. And eventually we will have to go back up and... deal with all those Tomb Raiders that are just waiting for us and see if they notice how much loot we're carrying out of here. If they can hear all the clinking of our coins. Because that could be messy. For now, though, my name is Mang. This has been Solo Roll Manging with Shadowdark and Barrowmaze. And I'll see you fine folks in the next part.